Well, you got to give the Hunts this much. As we look forward to where sports franchises are trending, the Chiefs never flinched. Never once did the Kansas City Chiefs flinch on the idea that they were going to change their name. And now, as we sit here in 2025, and we're just a few days removed from that ESPYs award show, where comedian Shane Gillis just absolutely torched woke sports media. And by the way, he was in Kansas City on Saturday night. I saw some of you were at T-Mobile Center enjoying that fantastic show on Saturday night. I heard amazing reviews. You've got now the President of the United States yesterday coming out and telling the Cleveland Guardians to change their name back to the Cleveland Indians, and the Washington Commanders football team to change their name back to the Washington Redskins. Some of you might believe that this is just a waste of time for Donald Trump. Why isn't he worried about the economy? Why isn't he worried, about foreign policy, Putin, Ukraine, whatever it might be? Well, Trump has proven, for better and sometimes for worse, that he can do multiple things at the same time. He can walk and chew gum at the same time. And when Trump gets a thought in his head, you know and I know he's not going to let it go. So yesterday, the President of the United States posted on his Truth Social page that he wants to see the Cleveland Guardians go back to the Cleveland Indians. And he wants to see the, as he called them, the Washington whatevers immediately change their name back to the Washington Redskins. He says there's a big clamoring for this. Likewise, the president writes, the Cleveland Indians, one of the 6 original baseball teams with a storied past, need to switch their name back as well. He says, quote, our great Indian people in massive numbers want this to happen. Their heritage and their prestige is systematically being taken away from them. Times are different now than they were 3 or 4 years ago. We are a country of passion and common sense. Owners, all caps, get it done. And he's right. And this is something that many in Kansas City media have been wanting to see for a very long time, especially during the ridiculousness of 2020 and 2021, right? We would see nonstop articles, Kansas City Star, the television media would write a piece, or I should say produce and air a piece every, couple of months or so, trying to, in some cases indirectly, in some cases directly, pressure the Chiefs to change their name. And to the Chiefs' credit, they never flinched. Never once. The Cleveland Indians folded in July of 21, and it was in 2020 when former owner Daniel Snyder decided that he was going to change the Redskins to the Washington football team, and then about a year later, they became the Washington Commanders. Now, do I think this is something that happens tomorrow or next month or even next year? No, probably not. I would say it's more than likely that these teams do not change their names back. I would love to see it, but I don't foresee it happening. But the bigger picture here is that we have done a complete 180 from where we were 4 to 5 years ago culturally. You saw this last week with Shane Gillis and his stand-up routine at the ESPYs. You're seeing it now with a push, yes, not just by President Trump, but by many with common sense, to revert the Indians back to the Indians and the Redskins back to the Redskins. Because those name shifts were always primarily driven by liberal whites in sports media. They were the ones who were most offended on behalf of Native Americans because they knew better, right? These groups are fantastic at being offended for other people. It's their white guilt on display. And sports media is loaded with these individuals. And they got it done 4 to 5 years ago. Thankfully, they didn't get it done here in Kansas City, John.
Well, I was going to say, it kind of has a ripple effect when it hits the high school nicknames and things, though.
Yeah, that's a good point. We saw that in Shawnee Mission as well. So, you look at this and you say to yourself, well, what's next? Well, you saw another thing happen over the weekend that I thought was another sign to me that the culture has shifted, that we're moving back to a place of real common sense, and it was highlighted in one of the biggest sports events of the weekend. Scottie Scheffler ended up winning the Open. No longer the British Open, but the Open. And Scottie Scheffler is by far the best golfer on the planet right now. He's not Tiger Woods when it comes to charisma or even necessarily talent, but he's certainly, I would say, the best we've seen since Tiger Woods. He just doesn't have that charisma to him, and that's fine. He's not going to be that transcendent figure, but he will go down as one of the best golfers of all time. So there was a great moment after he wins the Open Championship yesterday where his son, who's give or take 1 year old, is crawling up to the green trying to basically get to his dad after he wins the British Open. And it already has become a Nike ad. Scottie Scheffler is holding a putter, and if you haven't seen it, I'll share it on X. He's holding a putter with his son basically crawling towards him, also holding onto that putter. And the headline, the ad from Nike reads, "You've already won." And this comes, of course, after Scottie Scheffler wins another major championship, his second of the year. Now, compare this to a couple of years ago when Nike partnered with Dylan Mulvaney, the infamous maybe, better way to put it, transgender model who also destroyed Bud Light, for a sports bra campaign. 2 years after Nike partnered with Dylan Mulvaney, and I give Outkick credit for highlighting this, and once again, I'll share this on X at Pete Mundo. 2 years after Nike partnered with Dylan Mulvaney for a sports bra campaign, it is now posting a pro-family ad to celebrate Scottie Scheffler's win at the Open Championship. As they highlight and note here, a long way to go, but sanity may be returning. And I believe sanity is returning. And you're seeing it, whether it's in Shane Gillis last week at the ESPYs, whether it's in Trump and many finally coming out and saying changing these team names was always ridiculous. And while we may not get them back, at least we're stopping that trend.
Yep.
To now Scottie Scheffler winning the Open Championship and Nike highlighting him as a father in an ad instead of having Dylan Mulvaney in a sports bra, which is what they were doing 24 months ago, John. It is just so refreshing to see.
It is absolutely refreshing. Now, and to the point then, I was suggesting that on the high school level, these nicknames have changed. I think you'll see a ripple back at that level much quicker than you would ever see the Commanders or the Guardians changing their name.
I think that's a good point, and
yeah,
I would hope that.
Communities associate with that. Well, you've done the small schools in Oklahoma, the 8-man teams out there. The town's identity is around some of the high school teams a lot of the times.
Mm-hmm. And that's certainly something that I think is going to continue to happen on the hyper-local level, and I'm not taking anything away from the high school kids. I think that maintaining those names are really important. But when you see this stuff happening at the national level where the most pressure has been applied by media at large, to me, there's a cultural downstream effect that then will flow all the way to the high schools, which is really what you want to see happen here. So that was really just, to me, a defining moment this weekend and part of this cultural shift and trend that we're seeing back to, if nothing else, just common sense in the middle. It is great to be kicking off the week with you here on 95.7 FM KCMO Talk Radio. I'm Pete Mundo. Coming up, we have another entrant into what will be the biggest race we watch locally coming up in 2026. Who and what does it mean? We'll get to that next on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. We got another one. You want to be the next governor of Kansas, and you want to be the next governor of Kansas, and maybe you, yes, can be the next governor of Kansas. Yesterday, Ty Masterson, the Senate president, announced his bid to be the next governor of Kansas. Now, I would say that to the average Kansan, and I don't say this in any way negatively about Ty, I would say this about basically the entire field right now. The name ID for all of these candidates is relatively low, including Ty Masterson. If you're in the Kansas political bubble, you know Ty Masterson because you follow Kansas politics. But I would say the average Kansan could not name the Kansas Senate president. That's not a negative about Ty, but it's one of the many things that will be an uphill battle for all of these folks outside of maybe one person who has currently announced a bid in a very crowded Kansas gubernatorial primary, as all of these Republicans have been chomping at the bit for 8 years to replace Laura Kelly. It is 6:20. It's great to be here on KCMO Talk Radio. I'm Pete Mundo. So Ty Masterson makes the announcement yesterday. And the thing that he's got going for him right now over all the other candidates, and I'll get to them here in a second, is that he has the deepest ties to the Wichita area. Right now, this race is very crowded when it comes to Johnson County candidates, right? And there's a lot of them. I mean, I was thinking before the break, I said, you know what, let me do this in real time. Let me see if I can name all the people who have filed for, or not filed officially, but have announced that they want to be the next governor of Kansas. And off the top of my head, I'm going to do this and hope I don't miss somebody, but this just shows you how crowded the field is as we are over 12 months away from voting in a Republican primary for the next governor of Kansas. We've got Secretary of State Scott Schwab. We have Jeff Collier, the former governor of Kansas. We have Vicki Schmidt, who is the insurance commissioner. We have Charlotte O'Hara, who is a former Johnson County commissioner. We have Doug Billings, who is a podcaster in Kansas. We have Joy Eakins, who is someone in Kansas. And I'm not trying to be mean here. I'm just telling you, I'm starting to forget all the people who have announced they're running for governor of Kansas. She's also down in the Wichita area. So you've got a lot of people. And then who else? There's someone else. Stacey Rogers. That's right. Stacey Rogers. And I'm forgetting her title and her role as well. But my point is all these people are in the race. And now you've also got a situation where you still have potentially a guy like Dayton Moore out there that may end up running to be the next governor of Kansas. So there's a lot of credible people. But for Ty Masterson, here's his end game. Here is how he can win. He can lock down Wichita, the conservative base in Wichita. That's where he is a state senator, and he rose to become the Senate president. He's been the guy we've had on a bunch to talk about the Royals and the Chiefs because he's been heavily involved in the star bond offer for these two teams. And then he's also got to lock down Western Kansas by basically saying, I'm the guy who you can trust from down here in the Wichita area. He's going to have to play the whole, these are all a bunch of Johnson County elites, whether it's Collier or Schwab or, O'Hara or Billings. I'm not saying they are, but he's got to basically play, I'm not Johnson County, Kansas, because there is a heavy Johnson County sentiment to this race. Even though a lot of these folks have ties to other parts of Kansas, they weren't necessarily raised in Johnson County. That's going to be the play for Ty Masterson in this Kansas governor's race going forward. It was long expected that he would get into the race. I mean, we've known for months now that he was considering this and that it was only a matter of time before he jumped into it. But you have a race now where the winner in this Kansas primary next year may get, maybe it's 20%, possibly 22, 23. I mean, that's probably enough to get you a win in this Kansas Republican primary. So the question becomes, where are you getting your 20% from? And can you run up some numbers in the Wichita area, if you're Ty Masterson, that makes it plausible for you to, even if you lose Johnson County, the Johnson County coalition, the Johnson County folks basically eat each other up, right? Where no one runs up a big enough number here in Johnson County because there's a lot of these candidates who are from Johnson County. So that's got to be the strategy here for Ty Masterson, and it actually might work for him because he will be in when it comes to money, and the reality is you need money in a race like this. He'll be in the top 3 when it comes to money in this race. He'll have more money than O'Hara, Rogers, Billings, Eakins right out of the gates. And then it'll be up to Schwab, Masterson, Collier, and Schmidt when it comes to, actually having the money that you need, the millions that you need to run a race for governor. I'm not saying one of the grassroots candidates can't come up and shock people. It's always possible in politics. But just if you were a betting person here, you would look at those 4 and say, well, they're going to have more money. They'll have more resources for a statewide campaign, which requires a lot if you want to do this thing properly. And those are the 4 that you'll look at the top and say they're the ones who will have the most money on hand to run this thing statewide and really see if they can make inroads in places where they might not otherwise be able to have a chance. So all these Johnson County folks, Schwab and Collier, they're going to have to go out to other parts of the state and figure out how to sway people in their direction. Collier's got the best chance to do it because he's already been governor. He's got that statewide name ID more so than a Schwab or a Vicky Schmidt, even though they have, of course, hold statewide office. People don't really know, once again, their Secretary of State. They don't know their insurance commissioner. They don't know their Senate president. They just don't know those people. And that's why right now, Jeff Collier does find himself in the best spot just based on being someone who has held the governorship in this state. That will help him out of the gates. It doesn't mean he's a lock. It doesn't mean he doesn't have a lot of work to do. He does. They all do. No one's going to waltz into this thing and just pick up a victory without hustling big time over the next 12 months. But as the race gets more crowded, you would want to be the person that does have the most name ID to start. And that would be right now Jeff Collier. But Ty Masterson will be somebody who is a very legitimate candidate in this race and does have a very obvious path to become the next Republican gubernatorial nominee. So he's going to be a big name to watch. He's going to be on the show this morning at 8:35. So do not miss that. One day after he announces he is running to be the next governor of Kansas, Ty Masterson will be on KCMO Talk Radio for that first interview coming up in 2 hours. Coming up next, a lot of credit to John this morning. Mark Van Sickle is headed towards TV fame. We'll get to it next. John Anthony doing the Lord's work today. I am on remote location. I'll actually be visiting with our good friend of the show, Bill O'Reilly, coming up this afternoon. So I will report back on that tomorrow after catching up with Bill. So if there's a question that you've got for Bill O'Reilly that you want to ask privately or you want me to ask privately, you can drop that on the text line right now at 913-408-7957. If I can get to it today when I visit with Bill, I will. Just getting some time away, but I didn't want to leave you hanging, so we're doing the show a bunch of days this week as well. But, of course, as you may have heard last week, even the last couple of weeks, our own board op producer extraordinaire, Mark Van Sickle, finds himself right now on a set of a popular television show where he just wrapped up yesterday's day one as a stand-in. So we didn't know what Mark's schedule was going to be, but basically this very popular TV show that will go unnamed for now and finds itself filming in the Kansas City area asked Mark. Mark applied to be a stand-in, and he got accepted. So now he finds himself on the set yesterday, day one. Today is day two. We can't have him on the show right now because, as I understand it, he's basically doing 12 to 15-hour days. I mean, I got a text from Mark yesterday at 7 a.m. saying that he was going in for shooting, and then I didn't find out till this morning from John that he didn't wrap up yesterday until 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
So now Mark's gone. John's in charge. He's going to be handling, phones and guests and the board. So take it easy on John if you call into the show this week. But, John, I mean, this guy, he's going to be working way harder doing the stand-in stuff than he ever does here at KCMO.
It is. It's tedious, too. It's like repetition. You keep doing it over and over, et cetera. Yeah.
Oh, that sounds horrible to me. I would want absolutely no part of that, John.
Now, we're doing beauty pageant rules here because I'm actually the second runner-up. Garner's the first runner-up, and he can't accept due to some previous responsibilities. So I will take all the obligations of the winner today. And so by default, I'm also a stand-in, I guess, today.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yes, you're standing in on KCMO. Garner will be back tomorrow. He's got car issues today, so we're running a lean, mean machine today on KCMO Talk Radio, and John is doing the work at 2 today. So just know that. I'll take you behind the scenes here.
It's nice to be up here at the board at the front of the studio. It's like eating at the adults' table at Thanksgiving. Actually doing some important stuff in here today.
Oh, that's great. Well, just know, too, I think Mark's going to regret this whole thing. I really do. I mean, he's got a great attitude to be told by a bunch of Hollywood elites, hey, stand there again for the 17th time and, look this way, and the lighting was slightly off. I mean, I would lose my mind after about 2 hours. But I will say, Mark has the right demeanor
right.
to be a stand-in. I will give him that much. He is much better suited for that.
You're doing that. It's just, hey, the guy with the beard and the glasses, the guy in the Mariners hat over there.
Oh, my goodness. So we'll find out from Mark as the week goes on how exactly he's holding up and what exactly this stand-in role consists of. But, I mean, I think he's getting paid when all is said and done. I think Mark's going to be making like minimum wage, federal minimum wage, not the state minimum wage, but federal minimum wage at best, because he is spending way more time than I thought he was going to spend doing this stand-in deal for this very popular show. But you know what? I don't want to hear – now, Mark doesn't complain anyway, but if he comes back and complains, I'm not going to want to hear it because this was his big thing. He begged everybody to do it, and now he's getting exactly what he wished for. So God bless you, Mark.
He'll sweat off 10 pounds and be sunburned.
He will. Well, meantime, here in Kansas City, a good piece in the Kansas City Star this morning. I give them credit. Once in a while, they do get it right. Wondering what the future is for Kansas City's Penway Point, and will it ever be more than just a Ferris wheel surrounded by weeds? Every time I drive by that thing, whether it's on the interstate, and I'm sure there's many of you driving by it right now, who look at that Ferris wheel and say, what the heck is this thing, and why is it here? My kids love it. They're fascinated by the idea of the Ferris wheel, and they just love noting that there's a Ferris wheel in the middle of the city that they see on the highway. I have not done anything with them regarding, well, how ridiculous is this thing and why is it here? Because I'm letting kids be kids. But remember, when it comes to Penway Point, this was supposed to be more than just a Ferris wheel. It was supposed to be an entertainment district. Where have we heard that phrase before? That was going to be right near the Ferris wheel, built around it, right down the road from Union Station, and this was going to open in 2023. There were these big architectural renderings that were eye-popping, and everyone went, ooh and ah, and this is going to be fantastic. Well, nothing has really happened. In fact, with the Ferris wheel and the mini golf opening up in December of 2023, there's nothing around it other than weeds. So the Kansas City Star, to its credit, did a deep dive on this. And they write here, no heavy equipment is to be found at the site. None has been seen for weeks. Nothing has been seen going on for weeks or months. Weeds, standing as much as 3 feet high, have sprouted from the gravel. A 4-foot weed tree has grown through the concrete in one building. So what did they do? They reached out to the developers. They first reached out to Penway Point's developer Vince Bryant, founder of 3D Development, to discuss the project's prospects and timeline. The Star also contacted DaVinci KC, the master leasing agent for the project and whose partners include Bryant Development. And what did we learn after they reached out? In an email statement, Bryant conceded that the project has run into headwinds, but they're working to right the ship, feeling credit should be given for the adaptive reuse of early 1900s industrial buildings and looking to turn a brown-gray site into a vibrant green parkland. Most developers, Bryant said, would have bulldozed this site and started from scratch. He did not indicate when construction would resume. So we have to give them credit for basically having an idea that has not come close to fruition. Is that what Bryant Development wants credit for? They want credit for the idea of reusing buildings down by basically Boulevard Brewing, west of Union Station, where the big Ferris wheel is. They want credit for the idea of reusing some of these buildings and trying to turn it into a mixed-use development / entertainment district. No, you don't get any credit for an idea. You don't. Especially when you built the Ferris wheel first, and every time I've driven by the Ferris wheel, which is on a somewhat regular basis, but if I go to like Boulevard Brewing, let's say, where you can get a better feel for how many cars are in the parking lot and how many people are actually riding the Ferris wheel, it looks completely deserted to me. there is no way that Ferris wheel is turning a profit, just based on what I've anecdotally seen when I drive by it. So I'm not going to give the developer any credit, especially when you are now 2 years behind on this project, and there was nothing in their statement that said they were close to hitting the reset button. They just said they are working to right the ship. You tell me what that means. That's corporate speak for we don't have a timeline and we don't have a serious plan. Because it's fairly evident they don't. And then you know what that means, right? How long do they go on with a Ferris wheel that is sitting in the middle of a bunch of weeds and isn't making any money? And then do we end up with basically a Ferris wheel as part of the skyline that at some point is going to be out of commission? What a look that would be for Kansas City. So I hope the Star stays on this story. I'll do some following up on this as well, because since day one, it didn't make any sense. And now good credit to the Kansas City Star and good job to the Kansas City Star for doing some digging on this and finding out it's just as big of a mess as many of us projected it would be. I didn't think that this story was going to turn out the way it did when we shared it with you first on Thursday morning. So on Thursday morning, we were in the 9 o'clock hour, and I said, man, this thing is going nuts on social media. And there's the CEO of this company who it turns out was busted at a Coldplay concert hanging on to his mistress. And we talked about it a little bit on Thursday. It was breaking that morning. It happened the night before at Gillette Stadium where the New England Patriots play. And then over the last 4 days, it has taken on a life of its own. And now, as we told you right before the top of the hour, Andy Byron, the CEO of Astronomer, has tendered his resignation. We're finding out a lot more about him, and we're finding out a lot about the woman that he was with, that he went viral with at the Coldplay concert last week. So take a listen to this. The New York Post had this story. The HR executive at the center of the viral infidelity scandal married into one of the oldest and wealthiest families in Boston. Kristen Cabot, who is on leave from her job at Astronomer following the embarrassing caught on Jumbotron incident last week, appears to be married to privateer rum owner Andrew Cabot, according to social media posts. The alleged jilted husband touts his family's lineage as the sixth-generation owner of the long-standing rum brand, founded by the original Andrew Cabot. The Cabot fortune has spanned generations, and according to a New York Times profile back in 1972, it was estimated at about $200 million. That's the equivalent of $15 billion in today's money. It's not clear when exactly these two got married, but property records show they bought a $2 million house on the New Hampshire coast earlier this year. So this family, to give you some perspective, is members of a club in the Boston area that is so distinguished, that is so old and so waspy, that the Kennedys can't get in. That gives you an idea as to where this family is when it comes to the elite of the elite in America, especially in the Boston area. And now their name has been basically torn down by a woman who married into the family, who was caught on a Jumbotron at a Coldplay concert, being swooned by her boss, technically, the CEO, Andy Byron, of Astronomer. Both of these individuals were married, and now they have completely upended their personal lives, the lives of those around them, and their professional lives as well. I mean, has anybody been to a more expensive Coldplay concert than Andy Byron, John? This guy has given up tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars in what will be divorce proceedings as well. This is a quintessential example of why you have to think with your head and your heart and not something else, John Anthony. This is it.
That was mighty white of them, so to speak, too, getting busted at Coldplay. You're not even at Beyonce where you're dancing or Guns N' Roses where you're, woo, cutting loose. It's at a Coldplay show.
Yeah. That's exactly right, man. I mean, this story, it's amazing what has happened with this story, and now the most viral incident of 2025. And I don't know, if this is happening. I didn't see what was happening with the Royals over the weekend, but I do know that a lot of Major League Baseball stadiums over the weekend were doing their own Coldplay cams, where basically they look for couples who are mocking this couple at the Coldplay concert, and they're putting them on the Jumbotron. It's
Style
hilarious.
points.
I don't know what I don't know what happened in Miami for the Royals over the weekend, but I did see a lot of viral moments at various Major League Baseball stadiums where they're now calling it the Coldplay cam. I mean, this thing has taken on a viral life of its own, and it's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for all the knocking we do of the internet and social media, and trust me, there's plenty of downside. Just ask these two. It also has unified the country around this thing and this moment that we don't really get a lot of these days. Just something where the entire country knows about it. It's fairly harmless for the rest of us, and we embrace it universally. This is one of those few moments I can think of in recent American history, John.
Yeah, touche. Well, I think I've got my couple's costume set up for the Halloween season coming up here. So far, this is in the running. And the memes are great, too. You've seen one with Patrick Mahomes hugging a ref.
I saw that.
And the Edward Munch, the Scream one I was just showing you on the Facebook is maybe the best one, the Scream painting.
There have been some outstanding memes coming out of this. I have actually got to share one of my favorite ones. I've got one that I like. I mean, I just like ragging on SEC football a little bit. Not Mizzou, but SEC football, because I think they think they're better than they really are. So I've got one here that I will share on my social media pages, and it's got Andy Byron, the CEO, right as they get busted, and he's SEC fans, and then her face is quality losses, as like he's hugging her, because no one loves quality losses like SEC football fans do. I mean, they talk that thing up to a ridiculous rate. So there's a lot coming out of this, and now we're finding out more and more about these families. And the reason, I feel bad for the spouses and all this. I feel bad for the kids involved on both sides of this. But this is why. This is why you don't do this. Not that you need another example as to why infidelity is bad. But my gosh, there's always cameras on you, and don't do it because you think you might get caught. But goodness gracious, if you needed that final reason, I hope like heck this is it for someone. If this viral story brings certain people who are being bad, naughty, if they are cheating in their marriages, I hope that this is maybe a come to Jesus moment for some people in this country over the last few days to admit their sins, admit that they were wrong, and hopefully try to right the ship in their own personal lives. That may be some good that comes out of this, because this is going to get so messy, so ugly, and now innocent people have been put at the center of the conversation. And I feel bad for all of them. No sympathy for these two, but I do feel bad for the innocent people involved here in all this. Coming up on KCMO, Charlie Gasparino will be here at the bottom of the hour, Fox Business Network, with the continuing beef between the president and Fed Chair Jerome Powell. The market's getting set to open up for another week. Charlie Gasparino is going to be here in 20 minutes on 95.7 FM. Meantime, with the defunding of NPR and PBS, there was some local reporting done. KCUR reported on itself over the weekend. And I promise you, they will not get any sympathy from me after their own reporting on their own federal cuts. And I will explain why based on some numbers they shared coming up next on KCMO Talk Radio. I don't think that KCUR is going to get the sympathy out of this piece that they were hoping for here, their local NPR affiliate in Kansas City. Good morning. It is great to have you on KCMO Talk Radio. It is 7:21. Charlie Gasparino of the Fox Business Network is going to be here in less than 15 minutes as the markets get set to open up for what could be another interesting week that we've got to follow. So KCUR, of course, got partially defunded last week when the House approved the Trump administration's rescissions package of $9 billion. That includes clawing back about $1 billion for the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. That would include NPR and PBS. So KCUR writes about itself, which is always going to be an interesting angle to see how they spin this. And they go on to note here that most of KCUR's funding, 86%, comes from individual donations, membership gifts, grants, sponsorships, and event revenue. But about 5% of the station's projected revenue for this year comes from the federal government, which, by the way, is about $500,000. So if you do that math, that means that they are looking at revenues of about $10 million. That would make them the highest revenued private radio station in 2025 in all of Kansas City. So basically, the operation with the biggest revenues, partially being funded by the government, is now having to project 5% in cuts. That is something that the private sector in the radio industry has dealt with for the long time, right? I mean, it's been our job, and I've never complained about it, but we've had more competition. Right now, you're listening to us here on KCMO Talk Radio, and I can't tell you how grateful I am for that. John, Mark, Kevin, everybody involved with this radio station, we are so grateful you are here, not only because you could be listening to another radio station, but you could be listening to a podcast, to something on YouTube. There's more options for you than ever before. And you're here. That's been a challenge for us to not only put on the best show possible, but make sure that you can find us on the podcast, on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram, in all of these different places that you are, we have to be. That's our job, to adapt to the marketplace. We don't have a choice. If I sat here and complained about it all day, first off, you wouldn't care, you shouldn't care, and two, I'd be out of a job. You have to go with the way of the world. So we've had to deal with those challenges. Everybody in media, local TV has had these challenges. Cable TV has had these challenges. Everyone in traditional media has faced this, and some have handled this better than others. Newspapers have more or less become extinct because of what's happened to their business model. Radio's actually in a much better spot than people give it credit for. Local TV, it's hit or miss. But for KCUR to basically admit that their revenues would be $10 million this year, which would make them the highest grossing revenue station in Kansas City, and then cry about a 5% cut. Are you kidding me? You know how many media outlets have had to go through multiple rounds of 5% cuts over the years? It's a bulk of them, if not all of them, have had to deal with that and figured out how to do more with less. Now, KCUR, NPR has to do that because the business model of the government funding them is thankfully coming to an end. This is not the sob story that they tried to turn it into. They're admitting that basically they were cheating the system. They were getting government funding in an era when, frankly, everybody else was trying to figure out how to compete. They were competing on an unfair playing field. They were an NFL team playing with 12 players. That's basically what they were. They were a Major League Baseball team getting to pitch from 50 feet 5 inches instead of 60 feet 6 inches. And now suddenly, just a little bit, that playing field has been leveled. They still mention here that a big part of their funding is from grants. Is that city? Is that state? I don't know. But I promise you this, even some of the other radio competitors around Kansas City, there's no grant money involved in what we do. We have great sponsors who fund this radio station. They make money off of you supporting them, and that's all we ask for here at KCMO. Everything we do is free. We just say support the great advertisers, and I promise you we're not going to sell you a cheesy pin or a bumper sticker. That's not part of our business model. But for KCUR to go out there and complain about how they may have to figure out how to cut 5% and what that may mean and make it out to be a woe is Kansas City, we're all going to die because KCUR has to figure out 5% of cuts, I promise you there is no sympathy from anybody in media who has been navigating a very difficult environment, John.
Seems like the Monty Python skit where you say 5% cut, oh, pure luxury. We're looking at 10, 11% yes. every quarter,
Yeah. It is what it is, man. And now it's our job to basically keep the ball moving forward. And KCMO has grown tremendously because of you and you spreading the word. So we'll tie it up with that, and we appreciate you helping put KCMO on good footing going forward. Charlie Gasparino, Fox Business, State of the Markets, Trump v. Powell, and more next.